from my backyard because it's quite a nice day. It's not as nice as it was over the weekend, but it's still pretty nice. So I thought I would do my little live from the backyard. So if it's noisy, it's because we're kind of close to a main road. But you know, we can live with that, can't we? So today we are going to be talking about Elvis Presley, Priscilla Presley, Ginger Allred, and Lisa Marie Presley, as well as Riley Kuznick, I think that's her last name, Elvis Presley's granddaughter. So about a year and a half ago, I don't know why really, but I decided to read Priscilla Presley's autobiography, Elvis and Me. And it just kind of sparked my curiosity about Elvis. I watched that documentary that was on Netflix as well, and I just kind of thought, you know what, I'm gonna read a few more books. So then I read Ginger Allred's book about Elvis, and then I read From Here to the Great Beyond by Lisa Marie Presley and her daughter, and I really enjoyed all of them. And I kind of was thinking maybe I should review them separately, but I thought no, I'm gonna do this chronologically and kind of do a overview. I also went to go and see the Priscilla movie, which I really enjoyed. I watched it again at Christmas just because it was on TV, and again it's really, really good. I think it's really accurate to the book. So I think what I got as an overall consensus of Elvis was that he liked to be in control. He definitely liked to be very controlling, and you've got to remember, like, this man was, I think he was born in like the 1930s, 30s or 40s, you know, it's kind of going with the territory. Like, don't judge history by modern standards, but I think he was also kind of maybe a little bit mentally stunted by his fame. Hi, Dagmar. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I'm Jessie. I thought that was really interesting that he was just, he never really grew up, and he was very impulsive. I think that's very obvious. Hi, Justin. Throughout all three books, actually, and he could be very demanding because he was used to being waited on hand and foot. Hey, if you guys are watching, do you want to give this a like? We're talking about Elvis and the women who wrote books about him, and I thought it was all, like, his demanding nature comes across really strongly in all three books, and then in Ginger's book and Lisa Marie's book you kind of get the fallout from not having this enormous presence in their life. You don't really get that because Priscilla's book kind of ends with his death, whereas the other two books don't. Does that make sense to people? Obviously. I know Priscilla's coming out with another book, and it's like Leaving You Softly, Life After Elvis. With whom are you talking? I'm talking to you guys. The first, I think out of all three, the book I probably enjoyed the most was Priscilla's. I thought it was the most detailed. It covers probably the biggest amount of time. Okay, so we're talking about Elvis and Me by Priscilla Presley. We're talking about Elvis and Ginger by Ginger Allred, and we're talking about From Here to the Great Beyond by Lisa Marie Presley, and we're comparing them, you know? I think my second favorite, like, this is a really hard one, right? Because I honestly really enjoyed Ginger's book, and I think Ginger was given a really hard time after Elvis died. She was very young. She handled the press badly. I'll give her that. She handled the press badly, and I think the people who were very close to Elvis kind of blamed her and thought that she'd found him and was covering it up. And I think she was just trying to cope with it as best she could. You kind of get the impression that Lisa Marie just didn't like her. And I mean, who likes their dad's new girlfriend, right? That's a thing. Anyone got any questions about Elvis? Let me know. So I'm gonna say Ginger's book's my second favorite, even though it doesn't cover a large amount of time. I think it's quite intricate. It's almost like Priscilla and Elvis's relation, but on hyperdrive, you know? She obviously knew him very well, because if you've read Priscilla's book, it's definitely the same man in Ginger's book. And the bit where he shoots the headboard of the bed with her in the bed, I mean, that was pretty horrible. I mean, can you imagine waking up to that just because you said you weren't going to go and get him some yogurt? Hi, Taya. Right? It's not cool. I think as well, Elvis was a very, very generous man. That definitely comes across in all three books. Probably generous to a fault. You know, I think he definitely spoiled Lisa Marie to an extent that it really affected her in later life, especially because Priscilla was obviously trying so hard to not let her get spoiled. Does that make sense to people? So definitely that his attitude towards that sort of thing like had a detrimental effect to people afterwards, and I think you see that in Ginger's book as well. Yes, of course, Yolanda, ask a question. You'd see that in Ginger's life because, you know, everything, she'd left her job, for example, and after he dies, like, she has nothing. She's not at school, she's left her job, she ends up kind of getting manipulated into doing this exploitation film of Elvis, which she didn't want to do once she figured out what it was, but she signed the contract and she has to give her car back, she has to give the credit card back, and I'm not saying that she should, and she does, all very happily, may I add, but again, that's her side of the story. But I do think it's telling that, you know, everyone's like, oh, we don't like her, and I think it was just because Elvis did like her and probably put things into overdrive, you know, and people were threatened by that. I also think that the men around Elvis didn't like the fact that Ginger didn't want to wait on him hand and foot, and I think that gave her a really bad rap as well, and probably, you know, Lisa Marie is hearing all of this, so of course it's going to play out oddly. I think it's telling though that in Priscilla's book she says she likes Ginger, so that's important. That's important. If you're watching, give the video a like, it'd be much appreciated. One of my favorite scenes, I think, from the first book, so we're talking about Elvis and Me, is the fact that I don't think your text came through, Yolanda. Sarah Gordino, I agree, Ginger was younger and from a different generation. Yes, and I think that really shows, and I think being the youngest of quite a big family, Ginger didn't really want to leave home that much. She wanted to travel with her family, and I think that was probably resented by a lot of Elvis's kind of close intimates that followed him around. You know, you've got the Memphis Mafia. So I think that definitely played into their dislike of her, and I think that rubbed off on Lisa Marie. So one of my favorite scenes in the first book, so we're talking about Priscilla and Elvis, was definitely like Priscilla trying to make lasagna and not knowing how to cook. Like, I thought that was really cute. You know, she didn't realize she had to cook the pasta in the lasagna, which I thought was adorable. But I do think as well, you know, her life was so stunted until she left Elvis that, you know, she didn't really have anything outside of him. You know, she started doing dance lessons because he said he liked dancers. She started doing karate because he liked karate. And I think you see a little bit of that in Ginger, and I think if he had lived longer, you probably would have seen a bit of that in Lisa Marie as well, you know, liking the stuff that her dad liked because she wanted that connection with him. And I think as well, Ginger was young, she was playing, and Elvis buys her lots of clothes, lots of this, lots of that, and of course, like, he's love bombing her. You know, if this was the modern era, you'd say he's love bombing her. But again, she says that she enjoyed it, so, but still, he wasn't the nicest to her. Like, there's the scene where he hits her in the book, which isn't good, you know, and he definitely hit Priscilla a couple of times, like, that comes across. And, you know, I think his drug addiction was very strong. definitely towards the end, like you see that a lot with Ginger, like the not being able to stay awake, but you see it earlier as well with Priscilla. And one of the bits I thought was really upsetting was in From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie, when she is talking about seeing her dad unable to stand up in her bedroom doorway. I thought that was really sad. You know, I think that's a really sad thing for like an 8-year-old girl to have to see, you know, and him being all puffed up because of drugs and water retention and stuff. You know, it's not good. So that was that. I think Lisa Marie as well, I think her relationship with her mother was so strained because Priscilla was so young when she had her. And even though she was, you know, I think she was like 18. No, she was like 18 or 19 when she had her. She hadn't actually grown up herself because she'd been just living in Elvis's shadow. So it was like 2 children living together. And I think that comes across in Priscilla's book and in Lisa Marie's book. Personally, I'm definitely going to read Leaving You Softly. I think that'll be my next like Elvis read, and then maybe I'll do another Elvis review. I think there's another book that was written by Joe Esposito that I want to read. I'm sorry if you can hear that. It's a plane. I wonder where it's going. You know? So, where were we? We were talking about Elvis. Yeah, so I think Riley, Elvis's granddaughter, so Lisa Marie's daughter, kind of summed up Elvis's relationship with his mother very well, because she said that played out again with Lisa Marie and her son Benjamin, which of course like that's just a tragic story. You know, like that's such a tragic story. I really felt for her with that. Lisa Marie and Riley, it's horrible. And I think, yeah, you do see that in families. The dynamics seem to play out and over quite often, you know? So I thought, you know, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but it definitely is a thing. It happens in all families. You know, I hope they don't start doing building work out here because it might get noisy. So does anyone have any comments or anything they'd like to add about Elvis and Ginger, or Elvis and Priscilla, or Elvis and Lisa Marie? I thought it was interesting when Riley was saying that her mother wouldn't even play Elvis's music and would change radio stations if it came on. I thought that was super interesting. I also thought it was interesting, like Riley's view of Lisa Marie's marriage career, because I've always thought that if Elvis had lived longer, let's say he'd lived into his 80s, he probably would have been married a few more times. You know, I just think that's how it would have played out. I think if he had married Ginger, she probably would have left him after about 10 years, because it was a hard lifestyle to keep up. You know, I think that's one of the reasons Elvis was addicted to drugs, is his lifestyle was very hard to maintain. I don't think anyone can maintain that sort of lifestyle long term successfully. You know, the weird hours and everything. Hi, Miss Nell. Just not good. So yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so singing. I also think it's super odd that Lisa Marie Presley had such an aversion to singing, and when her daughter asked for singing lessons, she was like, oh, you can either sing or you can't. And how she found Elvis impersonators really freaky, which I understand. I mean, if you kept going to stuff and seeing people dressed up as your dead father. Oh, Cormac's home. I'm on a live. No, it's okay, I'll finish up. But yeah, I think out of all of them, I probably preferred Priscilla's book the most, and then I would have gone for Ginger's, and then last I would have gone for Lisa Marie's. Just my personal opinion, but bye guys!